Welcome to Wine Line Radio and Wine Line TV. This is Robert Scott, your host, and today we're very fortunate to have Ryan Gromfin, proprietor of the restaurantboss.com and clickbacon.com. Ryan has assisted thousands of restaurant owners and operators all over the world. In fact, Ryan has helped thousands of restaurant owners and operators all over the world except Antarctica. Are there restaurants in Antarctica? I'm really not sure.
I'm not sure either.
But you've helped them turn their business into profitable ventures. Joining Ryan and myself today is Luis Torres, founder of Wine Business Academy and Go Wine. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Ryan.
Nice to see you guys. We're going to take, as you say, a 20,000-foot view of some of the restaurant trends and what's happening in the restaurant business and maybe even how it affects wine. So, Louis, would you kick it off, please?
Absolutely. So good morning again, Ryan, and thanks for being here. Robert, thanks for hosting us. As always, it's a great show. Today we're working with somebody that I'd just like to take a little pause and do a shout out to Ryan. I've had the pleasure of co-presenting with him. What I love about Ryan is that he works in all the spaces. He makes it fun, and he really is up to date with just the latest and greatest. And frankly, he's leading with technology and tools for the industry that are essential, in my opinion, for restaurateurs, hospitality types, the wine industry to succeed. So that being said, I wanted to just kind of lead with this first question. There's a lot of talk about trends every year, Ryan. They talk about food trends, they talk about beverage trends, they talk about, what's happening that's hot. We're nearing the end of the year, and you have seen a lot of stuff this year already, and you're probably looking at that crystal ball about what's going on into 2020 and beyond. So we'd love to hear from you is, tell us a little bit about the trends that are rocking the industry, and what do you see will benefit the industry in terms of trends for 2020?
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, thanks, Robert, for hosting this. And Luis, we've co-presented before. It's an absolute pleasure to be back here with you guys. So this trend question, like you said, we get it every year about this time, and it's always a fun one to look in the crystal ball. The big thing, of course, is going to be technology. We're going to talk more about that in a second. But what I'm also seeing happening right now is a polarizing effect of the types of restaurants and the food trends. It's easy to sit here and say, we're going toward healthier, we're going toward fresher, we're going toward, allergy conscious menus and concepts. And we are. There's tons of evidence. And we've been seeing that for a while, and those restaurants are going to continue to do well if executed properly, right? We're more conscious of allergies than we've ever been before. We're more conscious of different diet types, be it vegan, be it gluten-free. And so there are restaurants now that are specific to those trends. Obviously, the farm to market, farm to table, farm to fork, whatever you want to call that trend. So we continue seeing kale sales increase. We continue seeing ancient grains, quinoas, things like that, those more whole, more natural stuff. But what's crazy is on the other side of it, we're seeing just as much growth in quadruple cheeseburgers with mozzarella sticks, nacho cheese sauce, fried macaroni cheese, and 7 pieces of bacon. If you look at Instagram, if you look at hashtags like food porn, we're seeing just as much of that craziness happening. So to me, what I'm seeing right now is it's not you should be going in a healthy direction or you should be going in a terribly unhealthy over-the-top direction. I don't know what's going to be right for you, and I don't know what's going to be right for your market, but both of those are growing and continuing to gain traction. So it's really polarizing in a way. The one thing I'm saying, again, looking in that crystal ball, is stay away from the middle. Stay away from the average. Stay away from the good food, that we just put out a good burger. We do a good job with everything. That is not where we're seeing trends. We're seeing trends going to very specific, very niche, This started with the food truck revolution, 10 years ago or so, where a food truck would only have like 3 or 4 items on it, but maybe it was like the lobster roll food truck or the grilled cheese food truck. And that has spread into brick and mortar for many different reasons, but get more specific. I'm not seeing evidence that supports people wanting to go out to diner style restaurants, right, with huge menus that represent everything. So, whether you're in the high end, luxury market, more of the family style quick service, or even down in that fast food area, the trends are continuing to support that polarization of menu, very specific concept, really knowing your lane and staying in that lane. Does that make sense, guys?
It's a great commentary. This morning we were looking at the fact that wine is trying to come alongside simpler foods, burgers and fried chicken, if you will. And interesting that you talked about that middle of the road and staying away from it, because a concept that did precisely that, kind of try to please everybody in the pairing that no one would expect, fried chicken and champagne concept in San Francisco. Unfortunately, they didn't make it because it was just too extreme, right? Too middle of the road, and people didn't know what to make of it. So it makes total sense. So thank you for that important piece of insight.
Ryan, that last night I was at a restaurant, and they had on the menu, in fact, my daughter ordered them, funnel cake fries with apple sticks. So they have managed to combine a healthy item with an unhealthy item and present it in a package for a dessert. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm assuming nothing about that was healthy. Maybe the perception of health with the apple, but
exactly.
Knowing your audience is what's so key there, though, is, to me, that sounds great. Like funnel cake fries, apple, like sugary, crunchy, fried, delicious. But I'm kind of right on the border of being a millennial. I'm a Gen Xer or Gen Y, whatever you want to call it. But, it's knowing your market. And to certain people, that's just not even going to sound good. That's not going to be appealing. They're going to want nothing to do with that.
And of course, they had the obligatory salted caramel dip with it.
Perfect.
Louis, any comment on that?
Well, I think basically what I love seeing is this 20,000-foot view. In terms of the trends, I like this analysis better because I think a lot of the trends that are written about on an annual basis, as you know, trends are started in two ways. Maybe people really are eating healthier just on their own, or they're not eating healthier on their own. What I see a lot, though, is manufacturers stepping in and creating trends, right? And so they say the color is green because a key manufacturer has set that tone. I like this better from knowing your audience perspective, because that will carry through in the long term. When a trend is put out there, a food group by a manufacturer, et cetera, that could be very short term. And the restaurant, that's more of a threat to business when they're following really short term trends than what I see in terms of Ryan's approach. I like it a lot. I think the next thing would be, Robert, I don't know if you want to run with our next topic today about business practices with Ryan.
Sure. I think that's a great idea. Operators in the food and beverage business really need to adhere to the best business practices they possibly can in order to have a successful business. Ryan, what are those best business practices?
This is a challenge to answer, and I'm gonna take it in a probably slightly different direction than maybe most people would have thought, because I could easily sit here and I could tell you, for marketing, you need to be doing this, you need to be focused on profits, you need to be all these things that, make sure you have great customer service, make sure your staff is friendly, make sure your cooks know their recipes, all those things, super important, definitely best business practices. But I find myself saying this over and over and over again with every single client that I'm on the phone with every time I visit someone's restaurant, every time I'm helping someone develop a concept, which to me is just fundamental business 101, which is number one, find out what your customer wants. Number two, give it to them. And I really don't think it gets harder than that. Yes, the devil is in the details. If you don't have great customer service, if you don't have great training, if we don't have great recipes, if we don't have clean bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, where I find a restaurant is struggling the most, or where a restaurant isn't succeeding at the levels that they want to succeed at, and again, you can apply this to any business, is very simple, is we haven't taken enough time to determine who our customer is, and not everybody. Anyone who says our customer is everybody is appealing to nobody. I was on the phone with someone the other day and they said, well, we serve grilled cheeses. Everybody loves grilled cheese and tomato soup. So my target customer is everybody. I said, absolutely not. Because you can't advertise to everybody. You can't find everybody on Facebook. Nobody has the budget for that. So you have to get more granular on who your target market is. But first you determine who your target market is, and then you find out what they need. Do they need a fast lunch, or do they need a romantic lunch? Do they need an inexpensive dinner? Do they need an expensive dinner? Do they need a quick dinner? Like, what is it? Who is it? And what do they need? And then give it to them. I don't think it's much harder than that. We make it harder because we're not clear on who our audience is. We're not clear on what it is that they want. And then we don't have a plan to give it to them exactly the way that they want it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And so you really have to take the time to identify not only what you want to serve, but who you want to serve it to.
Yeah, I mean, I have clients, this call is called Wine Line Radio, and I definitely want your opinion on this, but I have clients, I just got back from Ohio working with a restaurant chain that's growing very quickly. We developed a concept a year and a half ago. They're getting their fourth unit open next month. We just opened their third. They serve all canned wine. All of their wine is canned, and it sells like crazy. They don't have a buy the glass program. They don't have a buy the bottle program. It all comes in 12-ounce metal cans of wine. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, everybody could be cringing at that thought. There are people right now listening to this who are cringing at that thought. But it's about knowing who your customer is. Their customer not only isn't into the high-priced wine, but wants to drink wine. They love the canned wine. They take pictures of it when it comes. They share it with their friends. So it's about knowing your customer. If we just took a generic approach and looked at their menu and looked at their price points and then just recommended, 10 or 15 different bottles that we think would fit into that, we didn't do our job. This customer doesn't want pretension. They want the fun, and they are buying it like crazy. It's not like, oh, we have canned wine because they don't sell a lot of wine. They don't want it to go bad. No, they're going through cases and cases of it a week. So know your customer and give it to them.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So they're in the business of kicking the can down the road.
There you go,
so to speak.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, you're welcome. Go ahead, Luis.
That's really cool. When Ryan and I co-presented, one of the fundamentals that we teach all restaurateurs is basically this: find out what they want, find out what the consumer wants. Number 2, offer them options, and then number 3, keep your word, give them what they ask for. So the method is called the Fogg Method, and it goes beyond the standard business practices, because if you want to talk about the barometer that really makes you cook, is that every restaurant's food has to be great, and their service has to be great, and their financials and everything have to be great. That's just to get to the game. But
otherwise, you're out of business.
That's it. But the Fogg principle, and speaking to the cans, for example, unwittingly, while they're getting granular and they're really satisfying this niche, they are making money because their waste has basically plummeted to zero on the wine, right? Because there's no damage to 99% of the wine in a can, and their satisfaction level has increased because they're not potentially selling goods that have been sitting on a back bar, for 2 days and are oxidized. So really phenomenal statement. So thank you for that, Ryan. And I guess the main thing is, how does this translate in terms of the health or the current state of American food and beverage industry? What's it looking like for you? Because I know you travel a lot and you're speaking, you're trying to help businesses be more productive. What's going on in terms of the health?
So again, at the risk of touching on the surface of politics, which we're not going to do, but we're seeing the polarization happening in politics. We're seeing the polarization happening everywhere of far left, far right. I said it earlier about trends with food, but I'd say it again here. I don't think it's easy to state that, chains are winning. I would definitely tell you that 6 and 7 years ago, the chains were winning. They were frankly kicking everybody's butt. I mean, it wasn't even close. But now I don't think it's chains are winning. I mean, if we're looking at dollars, of course. If we're looking at percentage of industry, of course. They're dominating. They're massive. But independents are stronger than independents were 5 years ago because independents are getting even more independent. Independents are really staking a claim as their independents. They are opening up restaurants for a very specific clientele. Again, at the risk of being political, there might be an LGBTQ owner that's opening up a restaurant that is designed to serve their community. There's no way chains are going to do that. Same thing with food. If you're a vegan, you're opening up a vegan restaurant potentially. There's no way chains are going to start doing that in my head. But True Food Kitchen, which is a Fox concept, they're growing big in the corporate, healthy, organic, very allergy, very diet-friendly way. But again, they're never going to be able to be that specific because they're still a chain. So again, I go back to what I said earlier, which is stay away from the middle. The chains that are doing the best right now, in my opinion, are the chains that are staying in their lane. They're staying very corporate, but people like that they're corporate. For example, my wife and I, there's a Chuy's, which is, 80 unit, 90 unit Tex-Mex themed restaurant. We eat there all the time. Is the food phenomenal? No. Is it fast? Is it friendly? Is it priced right? Is it good enough? Is it great for the price? Absolutely. We eat there all the time. And we seek it out because it's a chain, because I know what we're going to get, and that works perfect for my family. But on the other end, when my wife and I are going out on a date, or when we know we're looking for something, more romantic, more high-end, whatever you want to call it, we go to the extreme on that. We don't go to the steakhouse that has 1 or 2 locations. We don't go to that big family-owned restaurant that's been around forever. We're going to that like ultra independent. They've drawn a line in the sand. The chef is walking around in a t-shirt with a leather apron. Like that's where we're going. So again, I'm seeing those trends. It's not independent or chain. It's the extremes of both.
Thank you for that comment. That's fantastic. So Robert, what do you, I dare ask you, which topic would you like to?
Well, I want to talk or ask Ryan about technology and the impact of it, because it makes no difference whether you're a chain or whether you're an independent. You both need to rely on technology these days in order to reach your audience. So, Ryan, what is the impact of technology?
Oh my God, we haven't even begun to see it. It's easy to be an operator today and sit here and say, I can't keep up with technology. It's happening so fast. Like, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Instagram from a marketing standpoint, all the different social media channels. But then there's also the POS system that's changing. There's the loyalty programs that are changing. There's the way people are ordering food that's changing. It's all changing. But I'm here to tell you, we haven't even begun to see it. I was in an Uber yesterday very early in the morning. It was a pretty interesting Uber ride for 40 minutes in Ohio. But we were having this conversation, and the gentleman who was driving was a little older, and he was having a hard time agreeing with me. But Uber is not a transportation company. They're the largest transportation company in the world that doesn't own a vehicle. Well, they're the largest transportation company in the world. New sentence, they don't even own vehicles. I mean, they're testing some vehicles, obviously, with automated driving, but they are a technology company. They are a technology company. Their widget happens to be transportation. We are starting to see that in restaurants. We are starting to see technology companies enter the restaurant business. The widget that they're selling is food. Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub. DoorDash is opening up their own restaurants now. They're licensing with chefs to create menus, but DoorDash is about to own the supply chain. Now, they may not own it on the procurement side, but they're about to own it from the production, or from the real estate, the production, all the way through to the delivery. Whereas now they only own the delivery side of it, or they may own the web space side of it, but it's your restaurant. And again, that's just the beginning of it, because then now the consumer pays by phone. They can track their order by phone. We're starting to see new payment methods for existing brick and mortars that when you walk in, look at Apple. Apple has a new credit card that, yes, they're issuing you a credit card because technology hasn't caught up with it yet. But the goal with the Apple credit card is no more credit cards. It's all going to be in your wallet. It's starting to happen. We're not there yet, but in the next few years, you're not even going to need a wallet. You're just going to walk into a restaurant. Server's going to come with their mobile device. You're going to have your mobile device, and somehow payment's going to happen that way. And then that's going to trigger all kinds of other actions to happen. But it's hard to say. I would say the biggest technology impact that we're going to see next year, if we're talking about the immediate future, is the massive growth in online ordering and virtual delivery, virtual restaurants, things of that nature.
If I can jump in here for a second, in the Orlando Sentinel yesterday, on Sunday, there in the business section, there was a review about this company that started out, young chef, started doing catering, and he all of a sudden got the idea, well, why should I try to do all this catering when I can do restaurant stuff that people can order? No phones, nothing, only your device can get to me. So he started Best Burgers, and it began best this, best that, best this. And they are doing phenomenally well. They have extremely low overhead. They've got 6 chefs working on this, no service people. They're in a warehouse environment, and the food comes in through the your iPad and goes out to the customer, and they're knocking them dead.
Yep. So this is in the industry. The term for this is there's 3 different terms. It's either a ghost restaurant, a cloud kitchen, or maybe a virtual restaurant. I mean, I've been talking about this for 3 years. You can go back to some blog posts I put out 3 years ago talking about this. And the early adopters are seeing success. It's a little bit of the Wild West right now, so you got to be careful, because you're very, very, very reliant upon your local delivery, whatever it is, Uber or DoorDash or Grubhub or whatever. And that's scary, because as laws change, it's sort of like the food truck revolution. Like in the early days with the food truck, it was the Wild West. If you were early and you bought a food truck and you took the risk, you could park anywhere, you could do anything you want. And then the cities started to change that industry a little bit. So, things are going to start to change here. Wait until the big companies with all the money. I'm curious on your thoughts, right? Because they're going to see their alcohol sales start plummeting because of people not going to restaurants. The same thing with like soda companies. So I'm sure they're going to want to start lobbying for different laws. You're already seeing something happening in New York. There's some laws that are on the books for next year about different taxes if more than I think 30% of your business is done by a third-party delivery company. They're talking about taxing you different. So it's interesting what's going to happen here, but it is the Wild West right now. It is absolutely the Wild West.
Crazy. And that leads us right into our next topic, Luis.
Well, a couple of comments. As Ryan, I think, would attest to, the biggest issue for restaurants is the limited margin, right? That slice that they can actually get. Most restaurants, if they can run a flat line, they're doing much better than most, right? This virtual environment or cloud restaurant is enabling that margin to grow, hopefully, because, as Robert said, the overhead is diminished. So I really think that it's going to get bigger, and all of the trends are seeing that Amazon's getting in the game. Interesting enough, places like Brazil, Colombia, Mexico are using products. One that's known as the Rappi environment, where again it's kind of the Uber of that world, and they're connecting with virtual kitchens. So I see this as kind of an upside. So before we get into the next topic, I really feel that this has a lot of teeth. Last year's statistic for McDonald's around the world, their delivery revenue was $5 billion. And that shocked me because I did pay a visit to a local McDonald's, and when I walked in there, the next thing that I've seen is just the kiosks. So now people are just basically stepping up to the kiosk, and the food is arriving in their hands shortly. Chipotle is introducing Chipotle Lane, where people are going to be pre-ordering and then just arrive to a carry-out window to pick up their food. So this thing, as Grandma used to say, if I say I'm catching a cold, it's probably because I have pneumonia. But that said, I'm going to segue here to the last thing, the parting item, and I want to thank you. I know that Robert's going to have some closing comments here in a moment. I want to thank you, Ryan, for being here, and again, Robert, for hosting this. What's the future looking like? What's your vision? Now we're going to go out beyond 2020. What's happening?
So I have a slightly grim vision for the future, maybe more than others. As much as I am the optimist, I always believe I could figure my way through anything, and I believe in long-term growth. Always, look, we're coming up on our 10th year of a growing economy in the United States. On average, the U.S. economy grows for between 6 and 8 years. That's if you look at bubbles and bursting of bubbles and such. So we have far exceeded the normal growth patterns. Again, let's not get political. Let's not get into the economic, because on both sides, people are going to make their arguments. But we're going to have a correction sooner or later. Is it going to happen in 6 months? Is it going to happen in 3 years? Is it going to happen next week? I don't know. But we are way closer to a correction than we are from it. And the difference is the last correction was a massive retail correction. It was a housing and a retail correction. This correction, in my opinion, is going to be a exponential correction. Places that don't create experiences are going to disappear. You no longer need to get in the car to drive to get a burger. The burger can come to you. So if we are going to get in the car to drive to get a burger, you have to do more than just give me a burger. It has to either be so epic that it's worth the drive, or I have to want to be a part of that environment. Now, by an experiential restaurant, I'm not talking about giving tours of the kitchen and having cooks or having your guests cook their own food. That may be fun and that may be coming, but there are certain bars that still do incredibly well because it's the Cheers effect, right? It's about going to a place where the bartender knows you and you know the bartender and you know the guests, and you just know that you're going to show up there and have a great time. But the old model of sports bars, of going to a place just because there's TVs, everybody has access to every sporting event on a 4K TV in their house. But 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you wanted to watch that obscure Sunday football game in a big television with high definition audio, that would have been a $20,000 or $30,000 setup that the bar had to pay for. Not anymore. So just having a sports bar that serves wings and alcohol is not going to cut it. Those are going to disappear off the planet of the Earth, or off the planet Earth. So if you're operating one of those, in my opinion, you got to start getting a little more serious about what kind of experience are we creating for the guest and how epic is that experience. Buffalo Wild Wings, if you pay attention to their commercials as of late, they're no longer advertising big screen TVs and sports bars and wings. They're advertising groups of people having fun, cheering glasses. They are making a very conscious effort. If you look at the text, and I've talked to some people in the chain, they're making a very conscious effort to go back to experiences, to going back to having a Dallas Cowboys night if you're in the Dallas area, a Buffalo football team night if you're in the Buffalo area, where it's about groups of people gathering to have an experience that you can't recreate at home. That's the vision I see.
I don't know whether I'm ready for it.
I think a lot of people need to start asking themselves that questions. And again, like I go back just because I just got back yesterday from this concept in Ohio that I worked with. But when we started developing this concept a year and a half ago, day one, we had two things in mind. One was everything has to be epic. That's a word that they use, and that's a word that we use. But we're not about good food. We're not about great food, like Luis said earlier, and I agree with 1,000,000%. Things have to be epic. Everything has to be over the top. We're not going for the healthy market in this particular restaurant, but even if you are, you can still do it. But in this one, margaritas are big. Margaritas are strong. Drinks are crazy. We're doing these really cool things with they're called buzz balls, but it's like a flower that's an edible flower that if you chew on it, it like numbs your mouth and changes the way that things taste. So that's one of their best-selling cocktails because it's an experience for people. It's different. But even on the food side, epic, but then also on the experience side, that's what we said. We have to build these restaurants in a way that encourages social interaction. So there's big tables, they're sharing tables, they're open footprints, they're very loud. These are not just restaurants that people go to and say, wow, the food there's really good, let's go back there. No, these are places that people go to because it is a party. They love it there.
I think that's a great comment. Because I find myself, I try to go try a new restaurant every week or every 2 weeks, and I find that over the last couple of years, I'm more disappointed than I am enthused about where I am. Mm-hmm. And, a couple of years ago, I could say it was actually the opposite. I went, the food was great, the atmosphere was terrific, but now I'm disappointed. So my perception is beginning to change.
Yeah, and look where you live. You live in experience land. You live in Orlando, right? But the point is, there's a reason Orlando is the most visited city in the country. Because look at what's there. There are experiences there. They're not good restaurants. There are great restaurants, but there's Disneyland. There's, why am I drawing a blank? Universal Studios, all these things. Those are experiences. You cannot recreate Disneyland or Disney World at home.
Right.
So no matter what, no matter where people's budget is, no matter how grim they are about the future, no matter where their finances are, people are still going to take their kids to Disney World.
Absolutely.
They may give up. They may not eat out at restaurants for a year to save the money, but they are going to take their kids to Disney World.
Yeah, it's an amazing phenomenon. And I think this has been an amazing discussion, and I think we're going to have to do it again in the near future. What's your thoughts, Luis?
I'm going to put you together with this great operator. His name is Danny Meyer, and we've got Ryan Gromfin. At the core of Danny's experience, he sells burgers at a place called Shake Shack. It's always been, it's not the burger. It's the experience. That's all it's about.
Let's go back to Chipotle like 10 years ago when Chipotle was on a tear, but Monty Moran was the head of marketing, the CMO for Chipotle, and he always said, the best marketing we can do is the experience a guest has when dining in our restaurant.
Yeah. So, on that note, Robert, I think, it's been a great time. I think this has been a great experience. And
I was about to say the same thing. You've stolen my...
But I hope we can have Ryan back, and I'm going to pass it back to you, Robert, to close off the podcast for today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Luis, and thank you, Ryan. This was very informative and entertaining, I think. And folks out there in Wineline Radio and Wineline TV land, I hope you learned something. And if you have a friend who's a restaurant operator, tell them to tune into this. I think it'll help them. Ryan, Luis, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Luis, always fantastic. And Robert, again, thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen.